This is Going After What's Yours with your talk show host, Celso, Nolberto. Where we give you the principles you need to win in your professional and personal life. So really quickly, we'd like to give a small recap concerning what was discussed in our first podcast. And guys, we like to say that we are very excited. I'm very excited concerning the initiation, the start of this podcast and what we are doing. This podcast, for those of you who were able to listen to the first episode, it's about being able to help people truly discover, understand what they're capable of, and bringing their potential to another level. And in that, bringing forth the best of who you were created to be. If you have not checked out the first episode, we encourage you to go ahead and do so. But we're going to be talking about what was discussed in that first episode. And the theme was called The Things I Learned in Adversity. So, besides us talking about what this podcast was going to be about and the things we're going to do in this podcast, we also began to speak about something that is very current, which is a pandemic called the coronavirus, how it has affected us as a nation, how it has affected us as a people group, and even individually. And what did that look like in my experience? So we spoke about how during these times, something that is crucial in adversity is having the right perspective. And when we speak about having the right perspective, is the understanding that mindset have a big part to play. So I was able to truly get open and be able to express certain sentiments, certain things I was feeling, and how I went about getting myself to a place where I felt adequate enough within myself to be a help to, first and foremost, myself, and then to be a help to others. We spoke about certain steps that was taken in order to develop the proper mentality. And one of the steps that I had to do was, number one, simply educate myself. Getting informed, getting the right information, getting comfortable with what was taking place to an extent where I was able to function. I know my limits. I know what I'm capable of. I know how to navigate the present time. Number two, I had to come to a place to motivate myself, to strengthen myself. And number three, taking the necessary time to assess the situation and what it looked like in the long term, in the short term, how would it affect me, family, loved ones, and what will it look like after the pandemic. And now with this, we now enter into the second part of the things I learned in adversity. So, a sub-theme that we like to discuss for part 2 of this episode is being part of the solution and not the problem. Being part of the solution and not the problem. So within myself, I knew that there was something coming. It did not look good concerning the things that was being seen in China, where we learn, or sources say, that it originated from there. And looking at whether it be videos or whatever the case may be, and once again, but looking at media, it did not look too good. Looking at different videos and how people reacted to it, it did not look good. Knowing this, I told myself that if this was to get worse, or if this situation begins to knock on the doors of our shores, on our, and it got to our, let's say, footsteps, that I did not want to be part of the problem. I wanted to be part of the solution. I wanted to be in a well enough place to be able to function, to lead, and to be an asset and a help to those who may be in need. So I know I needed to be mentally strong, physically capable, and spiritually sound. And that's what that means to me, being part of the solution and not part of the problem. So a lesson learned in adversity is the importance of living above the noise. The importance of living above the noise. So the noise to me is everything that can affect you and limit your ability to hear proper direction. So anything that could interfere with your abilities and senses to be clear-minded, to have the proper information, understanding that you need to be functional. Right? Sometimes we say the statement, I can't hear myself think. And usually it's because there's a disturbance, there's a noise, there's a distraction. And in these times, one thing I needed to do was, number one, cut off the noise. Cut off the noise. So everything that would be a distraction, everything that would try to cause confusion, which is something I saw a lot in media, something that I was hearing through different sources of people who stated or said that they knew some extra knowledge or extra information from the government. And all the information relating to the secular, I had to cut it off. So really quickly, something I saw as noise was the different media sources, the different channels by which information was coming from, which instead of bringing clarity, brought confusion. So number one, the secular. But sadly to say, something that I saw was that the faith community, though wanting to have good intentions, seemed to be reacting to the situation in an emotional way. And to me, this was noise. Why? Because I was seeing how there was people bashing other people because maybe they did not have sufficient enough faith to not be afraid, or the decisions to either close churches or not close churches. People reacted in bringing different scriptures that dealt with the end of the world. And I saw all these things in both the secular and in even the faith community, sadly to say, to be not only noise, but potentially part of the problem. And if I wanted to be part of the solution, I needed to cut off the noise in order to gain clarity in the direction, to not react in an emotional way or to what's being said in the secular. Not react, but to act. So how did I did this? How did I gain this clarity and this focus in these times? I had to, number one, step back. Step back from all of the distraction, all of the noise, and everything that just seems so chaotic in the present time. Number two, I needed to connect with my faith in order to get direction. And with connecting with my faith comes number three, strengthen my faith. So I did that. I got direction. I strengthened myself by doing the things I need to do. Praying. Taking a little bit more extra time to pray. Let's say after a church meeting, I will go finding a different service or vigil church meeting where I can do or have a little bit of extra time of personal prayer. And of course, strengthening myself with reading the Bible. I knew within myself that tough times were coming, and I felt within myself that I needed to be prepared. I wanted to be prepared in order to be a help and to act and not react. Now, this was a week or two before things got more hectic here in the States or in New York City. And right after this time of doing these things and being intentional about strengthening myself, I got sick with a fever. But as I was doing the things to recuperate, I lost, I lost my appetite. I was not able to taste anything. And as I was taking ibuprofen, meds, eating soup, and doing these things to refuel and strengthen my body, I was also doing things to feed and strengthen my faith. I was listening to powerful and very timely messages, one of which was by John C. Maxwell on how to lead in crisis, which taught me so much key things. Other resources was T.D. Jake, and keeping informed with what was going on through the proper resources. And I felt that I got my breakthrough. And once that breakthrough came, ideas just started flowing and flowing from a deep place inside of me. This concludes episode 2 of the podcast. On the next podcast episode, we're going to be discussing on how we can aim to be effective. What did that look like for me? Now, small announcements. You can find us on YouTube at Celso Nolberto. We have a new series called motivational series called Seeds of Hope. You can also find us on Instagram at Purpose2Function_LLC. This was another episode of Going After What's Yours.